New Mexico Territory, 1889. The kind of dusk that made the desert look hungry. Elena Crow stumbled across the hardpan as the wagon train that had cast her out vanished into the rising dust, leaving her pregnant, hunted, and marked for death by the red vultures riding fast behind her. A gunshot cracked the air. A bullet chewed the dirt at her feet. Her heartbeat turned into pure panic as she ran with nothing but a stolen map and a secret men would kill to bury. If this is how I die, she thought, no one will even know why. Before we continue, if you're watching this from anywhere in the world, leave your city name in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Elena Crow had been pushed off wagons before, but never like this. Never with a dozen faces staring down at her, as if she were a curse they had to peel away before nightfall. The sun hadn't even set, yet the world already felt dark around her. Someone tossed her bundle after her. It hit the dust with a dull thud. Then came the silver concho, small, cold, stamped with the shape of a vulture. It spun once in the dirt before settling beside her boot like a verdict. "Take your bad luck with you," the lead driver barked. "We ain't dying for you." The wagons rattled on, wheels grinding against stone, leaving her alone in the rising wind. Elena watched them shrink into the horizon, her breath ragged in her throat. She could have shouted. She could have begged. But shame had a way of choking sound before it ever reached the tongue. Her fingers brushed her belly, the ache there more than fear. She whispered, "I'm sorry, little one. I'm trying." Night pressed close fast, as if the desert wanted its claim on her. She stumbled toward the distant glow of dry water, nothing more than a handful of flickering lights. But it was the only place still within reach. With each step, she whispered to herself that she'd make it, though even she didn't fully believe it. When the first hoofbeats rose behind her, Elena froze. The sound came low and mean, a rhythm she recognized far too well. Red vultures. She could smell their whiskey before she could see their faces. One of them laughed, short, ugly. "Told you she'd head for town, like a rabbit caught halfway between runnin' and dyin'." Elena ran. Her ribs throbbed, her breath tore, but she ran because the alternative was a nightmare she refused to relive. The men didn't bother chasing on foot. They let their horses close the distance slow, savoring her fear like dessert. She didn't scream. Screaming had never saved her before. Drywater's wooden buildings finally appeared through the dust. She stumbled into town, crashed through the swinging doors of the Rusty Lantern Saloon, and collapsed against a table. Conversations halted. Cards froze in hands. 100 eyes turned on her with one shared expression: trouble. Rourke Dallow rose from the bar like a snake lifting its head. Tall, heavy-shouldered, with a whiskey smile that promised pain. He wiped his mouth on his sleeve and swaggered toward her. "Well now," he drawled. "What did I tell you, boys? She always crawls back." Elena tried to stand, but her legs buckled. Rourke caught her arm, tight, hard enough to bruise. She flinched. He grinned wider. "You're carrying something of mine," he murmured. "Ain't right to run off with another man's property." I'm not your property, she whispered. That so? He jerked her forward. Whole town knows your type. Bad luck girl. Brings graves wherever she sleeps. A low rumble stirred outside. Hoofbeats again, but different this time. Slower, steadier, not hunting, arriving. The saloon doors slammed open a second time. Caleb Hart filled the doorway like a shadow solid enough to break storms. Broad-shouldered, skin dark as the night desert, eyes quiet but sharpened by years of loss. People didn't look at him long, some out of prejudice, some out of guilt, all out of caution. He scanned the room once, and when his gaze landed on Elena, on Rourke's hand gripping her, his jaw knotted. Let her go, he said. Rourke snorted. Ain't none of your... Caleb stepped forward, and the room shifted. The air thinned, cards dropped, chairs creaked. Even Rourke's breath hitched before he masked it with a laugh. Easy there, Knight Rider, Rourke taunted. You really planning to start something over a stray? Caleb didn't blink. Hand off. For a moment no one breathed. Then Elena felt it. The slight loosening in Rourke's grip. The way fear brushed his spine, though he'd never admit it. He let go, not much, just enough for her to jerk free and stumble behind Caleb. She's trouble, someone muttered. Don't bring her here. She ain't your concern, Caleb replied without turning. Rourke's grin flattened. You're making mistakes again, Hart. You know what happens when you pick up strays. Caleb didn't rise to the bait. He simply rested one hand on the butt of the holstered Colt at his hip, not grabbing it, not even threatening, just reminding the room that he didn't need volume to be dangerous. Elena, he said softly, can you walk? She nodded, though her knees disagreed. He held out an arm, not touching, just offering. A choice she hadn't been given in months. Her fingers trembled as she took it. Caleb led her out of the saloon. Behind them, whispers erupted like sparks hitting dry grass. Outside, the night was cold enough to sting. Caleb lifted her onto his horse with surprising gentleness, like every bruise on her mattered. You're safe with me, he said quietly. She wanted to believe him, wanted so badly her chest hurt. But trust was a muscle she hadn't used in too long. Still, she whispered, thank you. Caleb mounted behind her, steady and warm. Then he looked back at the saloon, where Rourke stood in the doorway, smirking like the devil marking his next step. Caleb said nothing more. He just rode, straight toward Raven Ridge, where a piece of hope waited she didn't yet know she needed. Caleb Hart didn't look back again. Not at the saloon, not at the men watching from the shadows, not even at Rourke Dallow still grinning like a wolf denied its meal. His horse moved at a steady, ground-eating pace, hooves thudding softly against the hard-packed earth just outside Drywater's main strip. Elena held the saddle horn with both hands, knuckles white, breath uneven. Fear still clung to her like dust she couldn't shake off. She'd run until her lungs burned, fought back tears until her heart ached. And now she was riding behind a man she barely knew, a stranger with a quiet voice and eyes that felt like shelter. He spoke only when necessary, and even then his words came low, steady, like a man who'd learned to measure everything he said. "You hurt anywhere?" he asked. "A little," she whispered. "Nothing new." He nodded once, not pitying, just acknowledging truth. That alone made her chest warm in a way she wasn't used to. They cleared the last building. The desert wind hit her face cold and sharp, but it felt cleaner than the air inside dry water. Out here she could breathe. Almost. "You got a name?" Caleb asked. "Elena." She swallowed. "Elena Crow." Caleb Hart. She'd heard that name whispered in more than one saloon, half in respect, half in warning. A black rancher in New Mexico territory was already cause for gossip. A quiet one with a history no one dared retell outright was something else entirely. "Thank you," she murmured, unsure why the words felt both small and enormous. Caleb didn't answer right away. His silence wasn't cold. It was careful, like he was giving her space to find steadiness again. "You don't owe me anything," he finally said. "No payment, no story. I saw a man grabbing you with harm in his eyes. That was enough." Her throat tightened. Men who helped always wanted something later. That had been the rule of her life. "Why?" she breathed. He shrugged lightly. "Raven Ridge's rule. Anyone crossing my door is treated like a person. Not a problem." Her eyes stung. She blinked hard. The road to Raven Ridge curved along a low ridge, the ranch house coming into view, lamps glowing warm in the windows, smoke curling from the chimney. A simple place, old wood and honest repairs, but it looked like more home than anything she'd seen in a long while. A figure stood on the porch, a boy of about 15 with a lanky frame, arms folded tight, gaze sharp with worry. Evan Hart stepped forward, boots scuffing the dirt. "Uncle," he called. "You're late." "Had trouble in town," Caleb said. Evan's gaze flicked to Elena. Suspicion flared instantly. "Who's she?" he asked. "We barely got enough food for winter as is." "Elena Crow," Caleb replied. "She'll stay the night." Evan didn't argue, but his jaw set hard. Maggie said supper's on the stove. She waited. Caleb nodded and helped Elena down from the horse. Her legs almost buckled. Caleb caught her elbow, not gripping, just steadying. "I've got you," he murmured. The words hit deeper than they should have. Inside, lantern light glowed warm across the walls. The faint smell of beans and bread lingered in the air. Elena hadn't realized how hungry she was until her stomach tightened painfully. A little girl peeked around the kitchen door, freckled nose, hair in two messy braids, eyes bright as spring water. Maggie Hart was maybe 8, small but fearless in that way only children could be. "Who's that?" she whispered to Evan. "A stray," Evan muttered. "Evan," Caleb warned. Maggie stepped closer, curiosity outweighing caution. She held out a tin cup with both hands. "It's warm milk," she said softly. Uncle says everyone should get something warm at night. Elena stared at the cup, then at Maggie's small, hopeful face. No one had handed her anything without expecting something back since her husband died. The kindness cracked something deep inside her. "Thank you," Elena whispered, taking it carefully. Maggie smiled, wide, innocent, like kindness was the easiest thing in the world. Behind her, Evan crossed his arms again. "We ain't running a charity, Uncle." Caleb took a breath, voice steady but firm. "We're running a ranch with rules." "What rules?" "That anyone hurt gets a place to sit and a meal. We don't turn away people in need." Evan looked away, jaw tight. Elena felt the guilt rise in her chest. She didn't want to be a burden. She didn't want to divide a family that already looked held together by threads. "I can work," she said quickly. "I'll earn my keep. I don't need much. Just one night. Maybe two if—" Caleb raised a hand gently. "Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, we'll talk." His tone wasn't dismissive. It was grounding. She breathed for the first time without shaking. In that small, warm kitchen, with Evan glaring, Maggie smiling, and Caleb washing dust from his hands, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in months. A thin thread of hope. It frightened her as much as it healed, because hope meant she might want to stay, and staying meant Rourke Dallow would come looking. Elena Crow hadn't slept indoors in months. Not truly. Not without fear gnawing through her ribs. Even now, sitting at the small wooden table in the Hart family's kitchen, her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Hunger, exhaustion, dread. She wasn't sure which one held her tighter. Caleb set a bowl in front of her. Beans, thick stew, a scrap of bread. Simple food, but warm. The kind that reminded a body it still had a reason to keep going. "You eat slow," he said gently. "Ain't no one taking it from you." Elena nodded, though her breath still came in shallow pulls. She lifted the spoon with unsteady fingers and tasted the broth. It felt like fire in her chest. Good fire. Healing fire. Maggie hopped onto the bench across from her, chin in her hands, studying Elena with the curious boldness only children had. "You look tired," the girl said softly. "I am," Elena admitted. "You can use my blanket tonight. It's soft and warm." Evan, leaning against the doorway, groaned. "Maggie, stop giving everything away." Caleb shot him a look. Evan straightened but didn't apologize. Elena lowered her gaze. "I don't want to take anything from any of you." "You ain't taking," Caleb replied. "You're borrowing. There's a difference." She swallowed hard. His words had weight. Steady, patient, unpushy. A kind of care she didn't know how to trust yet, but wanted to. After supper, Caleb showed her to the small spare room. A narrow cot, an old quilt, a bench in the corner. Nothing fancy, but more than she'd expected. "You'll be safe here," he said. "You keep saying that," she whispered. "Why?" Caleb hesitated, thumb brushing the edge of the doorway. "Because I know what it's like not to be. The truth in that hit her deeper than any promise. She held his gaze longer than she meant to. There was grief in his eyes, old grief, settled deep, but there was also a softness he didn't show to many. She wondered how much pain a man had to survive to look like that. "Try to sleep," Caleb said. "Yell if you need anything. Evan'll hear it." "No, I won't," Evan muttered from down the hall. "You will," Caleb corrected. Elena managed the ghost of a smile. When the door closed, darkness pressed in again, quiet, but not empty. She lay on the cot, blanket pulled to her chin. Her ribs ached with every shallow breath. She pressed her palm to her stomach. "We're safe for now," she whispered to the child inside her. "Just for tonight." The words made her eyes burn. A soft knock sounded. Elena sat up fast, pulse spiking. "It's me," Maggie whispered through the crack. "I brought the milk warmers." Elena opened the door. Maggie held out 2 little cloth packets tied with string. "Mama used to put these on my feet so I'd sleep better. Uncle said I could leave 'em here." Emotion rushed Elena so fast, she had to grip the door frame to steady herself. "Thank you, sweetheart," she managed. Maggie beamed and scampered off. Elena stared at the warmers in her hands. Tiny comforts she hadn't known she needed until this moment. Her throat tightened painfully. She set them at the foot of the cot and lay back down. She slept. Not deeply, not for long. But she slept without fear for the first time in a long, brutal stretch of nights. Outside her door, Evan whispered to Caleb, "She's trouble, Uncle. You know she is." Caleb sighed, a long, tired sound. "Everybody's trouble out here. Question is what kind." "And what if she brings hers here?" Evan pressed. "Then we handle it," Caleb said, "like we handle everything." "Why her?" Evan murmured. "Why help her?" Caleb paused before answering. "Because someone should have helped your mama once. No one did." The hallway fell silent. In the dim corner of her room, Elena wasn't meant to hear. But she had. And the words wrapped around her heart like another blanket. Warm, unexpected, dangerous in how much they made her want to believe. For the first time in months, dawn didn't feel like a threat waiting. It felt like a beginning she might be allowed to have. But deep down, she knew one truth remained. Kindness was never free out here. And the man who'd chased her out of town wasn't done. Elena woke to sunlight pressing weakly through the thin curtains. Dust motes drifting in the quiet, like tiny reminders she was still alive. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then the scent of biscuits and coffee hit her, and the sound of Maggie humming off-key in the kitchen, and the memory of safety, strange, borrowed, fragile, settled over her like a second blanket. She rose slow, hand on her belly, breath catching at the soreness along her ribs. She braced a palm against the wall until the dizziness passed, then stepped out into the small hallway. Maggie saw her first and lit up like someone had thrown open the shutters. "Elena, you're awake. Uncle said not to wake you 'cause tired folks get sick easier." Elena couldn't help the faint smile tugging at her mouth. "Your uncle's right." Evan, sitting at the table sharpening a small knife, barely glanced up. Depends on the folk. Caleb walked in from outside, dust on his sleeves, the morning chill still clinging to him. He offered Elena a nod, not formal, not awkward, just grounding. Morning. You look steadier. Some, she answered honestly. Eat while it's warm, he said, motioning to the biscuits. She did, carefully, slowly. Her hands still shook a little. She'd eaten in many kitchens, some violent, some cold, some pretending kindness only to take it back later. But this one felt like it was built from people who'd been hurt and learned to stitch themselves together anyway. After breakfast, Elena stood and gathered the plates, almost instinctively. Let me clean up. You've done enough. Evan snorted. We don't need... Caleb cut in gently. Let her. So Elena washed dishes. The warm water soothed her hands. The simple rhythm steadied her breath. Maggie hovered nearby, handing her towels, chattering about the ranch goats and the stubborn mule that hated everyone except Caleb. Elena listened, letting the girl's voice soften the tight places inside her. She hadn't realized how much she missed the sound of a child who wasn't afraid. When she finished, she tied her hair back and stepped toward the door. I'd like to help outside too, if you'll let me. Something light. Evan set the knife down and stood. Why? You don't owe us nothing. Elena breathed out slowly. Because I don't want to sit still and wait for trouble to find me. Caleb studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded toward the yard. Come on. They walked to the small garden patch behind the barn. The soil was rough, winter-bitten, but Maggie had stubbornly planted carrot seeds anyway. Elena knelt carefully, pulling the weeds that had crept up overnight. Maggie sat beside her, small hands imitating Elena's movements. You're good at this, the girl said. My mother taught me, Elena murmured. Said the earth listens better than most people. Caleb paused at that, but didn't comment. A quiet fell over the yard, the kind that didn't press or judge. Elena felt herself breathing easier, almost forgetting the fear waiting beyond the ranch gate. Then Maggie froze, her gaze fixed on Elena's face, squinting. I remember you, she whispered. Elena's chest tightened. You do? You were the lady in the blue scarf, Maggie said, eyes wide. That day the sandstorm hit near Porter's Pass. You pushed me under your wagon so the wind wouldn't take me. You yelled at the sky like you were bigger than it. Elena's breath caught. That memory had been buried by everything that came after. But she saw it now. The screaming wind. The girl's terrified cries. Her own hands clawing through the grit to grab Maggie's arm. You saved me, Maggie said simply. Not dramatic, not emotional. Just truth. Caleb looked up sharply. Evan straightened too. Elena swallowed the lump rising in her throat. You remember that? Maggie nodded hard. I've been looking for you. Told Uncle a lady saved me but didn't get your name. Elena stared at the dirt, fighting the burn in her eyes. I didn't think anyone noticed. I did, Maggie whispered. I don't forget people who help me. The weight in Elena's chest shifted. Something warm, painful, hopeful. Caleb stepped closer, voice low. That true, Elena? She nodded once. I couldn't leave her. Not out there. Silence stretched, but it wasn't harsh. It was full of understanding, of something rearranging between them. Evan cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, guess she ain't all trouble. Maggie beamed. She's good. Elena pressed a hand to her heart, overwhelmed by how much those two small words mattered. Caleb met her gaze. For the first time, something softened fully. Like he finally saw about just a woman running for her life, but someone who had once turned back into the storm for a child not her own. You can stay, he said quietly, as long as you need. Her breath hitched. She looked at Maggie, then Evan, then back at Caleb. Thank you, she whispered. Not out of obligation. Out of the sudden, frightening belief that she might have found a place she didn't want to lose. 2 days passed before Caleb decided they needed winter supplies. Flour, salt, lamp oil, a few strips of bacon if the general store had any left. Raven Ridge was running lean. Too lean for an extra mouth, though no one spoke that part aloud. When he hitched the wagon, Elena stepped onto the porch, nerves bunching under her ribs. I should stay, she murmured. People don't want me in town. Caleb met her eyes. You ain't hiding in this ranch. Not from them. I don't want trouble for any of you. You being alive ain't trouble, he said. It's reason enough. She didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded and climbed up beside him. Maggie waved from the porch, Evan leaning in the doorway with a look that said he'd rather go himself, but knew why Caleb brought her. Dry water appeared across the ridge, quiet under the bleaching midday sun. No celebration, no bustle, just a town that breathed suspicion as easily as dust. Elena's stomach twisted. Every building carried a memory she didn't want. Caleb slowed the wagon. Stay close. She did. Closer than she meant to. They walked into Finch General Store. The bell above the door rang off-key, and Ada Finch, all sharp chin and quicker eyes, paused mid-stacking canned peaches. Well, Ada murmured, Drywater's got itself a storm blowing in. Caleb tipped his hat. Just supplies. Ada's gaze slid to Elena. Something like pity flickered there. You sure you want to bring her here? She needs food, Caleb replied. Ada sighed. People have been talking. Rourke's been stirring. The sheriff ain't stepping in. Elena felt the burn of being stared at. Again, like she was a walking omen, a whispered threat. 2 men near the barley sacks muttered loud enough to be heard. That's the widow who cursed her wagon train. Heard she's carrying the devil's child. Elena stiffened. Caleb stepped half an inch closer. Ada slapped a receipt book shut. Ignore 'em. Their brains are half wind, half whiskey. But the words stuck anyway, lodging under Elena's ribs like splinters. Caleb loaded flour into the crate. We'll be quick. They paid and stepped outside. Elena kept her head down, trying to shrink behind her shawl. It didn't matter. People stared anyway, some with disgust, others with a strange hunger for gossip. A woman leaned against the well, arms crossed. "Shouldn't bring her here, Hart. You're asking for trouble." "My ranch, my say," he answered simply. "That child she's carrying isn't yours to judge," Caleb said, and though his voice was calm, it cut clean. Elena's heart fluttered painfully. No one had defended her like that in a long time, maybe ever. They reached the wagon. Caleb offered his hand to help her climb up. She hesitated, not wanting to seem weak. "Elena," he said softly, "let me." She took his hand. As soon as they settled on the tone bench, Sheriff Collins appeared from behind the jailhouse, wiping sweat from his neck with a cloth. Not cruel at first glance, but worn, wary, and too political for actual courage. "Caleb," he called. "Mind stepping over a moment?" Caleb didn't move. "Say it from there." Collins frowned. "Rourke told folks you're harboring a runaway. A dangerous one." Elena's breath hitched. "Ain't nothing dangerous about her," Caleb said. "Doesn't matter," Collins replied. "The town's nervous. They want peace." "Peace?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "Or quiet." Collins sighed. "Look, I can't stop Rourke. Not without proof. Just be careful, Hart. Careful has a price out here. Who you intend to make pay it?" Caleb asked. Collins didn't answer. He just walked away. Elena stared at her lap, throat burning. Once again, she was a problem wrapped in a body. Once again, she gave someone else a target on their back. The wagon rolled out of town, but the weight of dry water followed them like a shadow. Halfway up the ridge, Elena finally whispered, "I shouldn't have come. They hate me." Caleb didn't hesitate. They hate what they don't understand, and what they're too scared to look in the eye. "They hate you too," she murmured, "for helping me." "Ain't the first time folks hated me," he said. "Doubt it'll be the last." Her breath cracked. "I don't want to bring danger to Maggie, or Evan, or you." Caleb shifted the reins, guiding the wagon through a rocky bend. "Listen to me, Elena. You ain't trouble. Trouble is men like Rourke. Men who twist fear into power." She turned her face toward him. "Then why does it feel like I'm poison everywhere I go?" His voice softened. "'Cause no one stayed long enough to show you you're not." Her heart stumbled. She swallowed hard against the sting in her eyes. Caleb didn't reach for her, didn't make promises. He just said, "You're on Raven Ridge now. You ain't alone." For a moment, just a moment, Elena believed him. But as they neared the ranch, she caught a dark figure watching from the hills. A horse, a long coat, a glint of metal catching the sun. Her pulse spiked, because even from this distance she knew that shape. Rourke Dallow was already waiting. Raven Ridge lay just ahead when Caleb's horse slowed, hooves grinding into the hard trail. Elena felt him tense before she saw anything, like his bones recognized danger faster than his eyes could. Then she noticed it. A rider, middle of the path, still as a nailed fence post. Rourke Dallow. He sat high in the saddle, coat flapping lightly in the wind, one gloved hand resting on the reins, the other bouncing something silver against his thigh. It glinted with each lazy tap. The concho, her concho. Elena's breath vanished. Caleb reined in the wagon, broad shoulders tightening beneath his coat. He said nothing, but the quiet around him sharpened like a blade being pulled from its sheath. Rourke grinned as they approached. "Afternoon, Hart. Pretty day for a ride, ain't it?" Caleb kept the wagon steady. "Move." Rourke clicked his tongue. "Manners, Caleb. Thought you were trying to be respectable these days." His gaze slid to Elena, slow, burning, triumphant. "Howdy, sweetheart. Thought you were dead for sure." He lifted the concho between two fingers. "Left this behind last time we talked." Elena grabbed the edge of the seat until her nails hurt. Rourke leaned forward in the saddle. "You run too much. Makes a man feel unwanted." Caleb didn't raise his voice, didn't shift, didn't lift a hand. "I said move." Rourke laughed, the sound sharp as a broken bottle. "Relax, Hart. I didn't come to fight. Yet." Behind him, 3 red vultures materialized along the ridgeline, their horses pacing slow, like wolves circling a meal they were told not to touch. Yet. Elena felt her heartbeat crawl up into her throat. Rourke's grin stretched thin. "Town's stirrin'. Word is you're hidin' a thief. Or a witch. Depends on who drinks what." He jerked his chin at her. "Folks say she's bad luck. Hell, your nephew's timber camp burned damn near to the ground last night." Caleb's jaw nodded. "You know damn well who did that." Rourke shrugged. "Fires happen. Dry season." Then he lowered his voice, smirking. "Course, Night Rider Cal knows all about fires, don't he?" Elena looked sharply at Caleb. He didn't flinch, but something in his eyes went dark and distant, like an old wound tearing open again. Night Rider Cal. The name slid through the air like a snake. It meant something. Something that made Caleb's grip tighten on the reins until the leather creaked. "You don't scare me," Caleb said quietly. "You should," Rourke murmured. "'Cause you're standing in front of trouble that ain't yours." His gaze cut to Elena again. "Give her back." "No," Caleb said. "Wrong answer." Rourke nudged his horse closer. Caleb stepped off the wagon to stand between them. Elena's breath stopped. "Get back on your horse," Caleb warned. "Or what?" Rourke leaned forward. "You gonna do what you did last time? What was it they used to say?" He squinted, mockingly. "Right. You ride nights but burn daylight. Something poetic like that." Caleb's shoulders stilled. Elena felt the tension coil in him. Not violence exactly, but fear. Fear of himself. Fear of who he'd once been. She'd never seen a man fight so hard to stay still. "Leave," Caleb said. "You making demands?" Rourke chuckled. "Boy, you're living on land that ain't even supposed to be yours. Folks in Drywater are tired of pretending you belong here. Sheriff Collins owes me favors. Whole damn town does. He pointed the concho at Elena. And she owes me. Elena felt something sharp and cold crawl through her veins. She thought she'd used up all her fear, but there was always more when Rourke spoke. Caleb stepped a half-step closer. Not aggressive, just a quiet, unshakable refusal. You won't take her. Rourke's smile shifted. For the first time, a flicker of something meaner than cruelty flashed in his eyes. Oh, I'll take more than her. He leaned back in the saddle. Seahart, you don't get it. This woman, she ain't just running. She's carrying something worth money. Land papers, maybe. Secrets. Folks don't chase a woman across 2 counties for her pretty eyes. Elena's skin went cold. He knew. He didn't know everything, but enough to be dangerous. Rourke twirled the concho once more. Tell you what, I'll give you both a day. 1 day to hand her over. After that, I stop asking nicely. He turned his horse, then paused and looked back with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Oh, and keep an eye on that sheriff of yours. He winked. He's not as loyal as you think. Then he rode off, his men following like shadows, slipping over the ridge. Caleb stood motionless long after they disappeared. Elena climbed down from the wagon, legs shaking. Caleb, she whispered, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have brought this here. I didn't mean... This ain't your fault, he said, voice low. It is. He's coming for me. You saw what he... This ain't your fault, Caleb repeated, firmer this time. Evan appeared at the barn door, face pale. He'd heard it too. Uncle, Sheriff Collins was with those men last week. I saw his horse tracks near their camp. Caleb turned slowly. You sure? Evan nodded hard. I know his mare's shoes. The left one's a little crooked. A heavy silence dropped. And in that silence they all understood. Drywater wasn't just turning its back. It was selling them out. Elena felt her knees weaken. Caleb caught her elbow gently. Come on, he said. We need to talk inside. But as they walked, Elena knew one thing with terrifying clarity. Rourke wasn't leaving, and he wasn't bluffing. Night fell too fast over Raven Ridge. Thin moon, thick cold, the kind that bit skin and bone alike. Elena sat near the hearth, trying to breathe past the dread clawing up her chest. Caleb paced the room in slow, steady strides, jaw locked, mind working in dangerous circles. Evan burst through the door before either of them spoke. Uncle, he gasped. The timber camp. Something's wrong. I saw sparks from the ridge. Caleb didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat, his rifle, and was out the door before the wind could close it behind him. Elena went after him instinctively. Caleb, stay with Maggie, he ordered. Lock the doors. His voice wasn't angry. It was fear wearing a thin coat of control. That terrified her more than shouting would have taught him. Evan climbed onto his horse without waiting, kicking hard. I'll go first. See if anyone's hurt. Stay behind me, Caleb snapped, but the boy was already riding into the dark. Caleb cursed under his breath and followed. Elena stood frozen at the doorway, watching their silhouettes disappear, swallowed by flickering orange on the horizon. Fire. It was fire. Her breath tightened into a single jagged knot. She slammed the door shut, bolted it, and ran to Maggie, who was already crying silently at the kitchen table. "Is it the camp?" Maggie whispered. Elena knelt, pulling the girl close. "They'll be okay. Your uncle always comes back." But fear made liars of good intentions, and Maggie felt the tremble in Elena's arms. Outside, a windstorm rose, angry, shifting, howling across the yard like it carried Rourke's laughter in its teeth. Elena held the girl tighter. "Please," she prayed without words. "Please bring them back." Minutes stretched long, thin, merciless. Then she smelled it. Smoke. Heavy. Closer. She rose, heart racing. "Stay with me, Maggie. Don't let go." The girl nodded, gripping Elena's skirt. Through the window, Elena finally saw the glow, an inferno in the distance, swallowing the timber yard with thick waves of flame. Sparks lifted into the sky like souls trying to escape. Somewhere inside those flames were men. Evan. Caleb. Her vision blurred. No, she thought. Not again. She grabbed the rifle by the door. She wasn't a gunslinger, but she'd learned enough to hold one steady if it meant protecting what mattered. The wind shifted. Yelling echoed across the ridge. Then hooves. Elena held Maggie behind her, rifle aimed at the dark. Fear hummed under her skin. "Who's there?" she shouted. Caleb rode into the yard, smoke smearing his face, coat scorched in places. Evan followed, half falling out of the saddle, coughing hard. Elena dropped the rifle and ran to them. "Evan!" she cried, grabbing the boy as he stumbled. His clothes smelled like burnt pine, his cheeks raw from heat. I got one man out," Evan rasped. "He wasn't breathing at first, but Caleb slid off his horse, nearly collapsing. He'll live," he muttered. "Barely." Elena touched his arm. "Caleb, your hand." He looked down. His palm was blistered, burned in ugly red patches. He clenched it tight to hide the pain. "It's nothing," he said. But something in his eyes betrayed him. Something old. Something wounded. Something afraid. He walked a few paces toward the barn ruins, those blackened beams where shadows of old fires waited in memory. And then he knelt in the dirt. Not from injury, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of a past he'd tried to bury. Elena approached carefully. "Caleb?" He didn't look at her. His voice was low, raw. "I've seen this before." Her heart pounded. "The fire?" He nodded, breathing uneven. "Years back. Different place, same men, same smell. I was younger, stupid. Followed the wrong riders. Thought violence made me strong." His burned hand trembled. "A barn went up. A boy trapped. I ran before the roof collapsed. I ran and kept running for years." Elena felt her throat close. He'd told her pieces, never the whole shape. never the fear behind it. He whispered, "I thought I left that man behind, but he keeps finding me." She knelt beside him. Her own fear sat cold in her stomach, but seeing him like this, shattered, guilty, trembling on the ground, it shifted something inside her, something protective. "You didn't run tonight," she said gently. "You went in. You saved someone." Caleb swallowed hard. "Not enough." "It was enough for the man you pulled out," she whispered. "It was enough for Evan. It's enough for me, Key." Caleb finally looked at her. His eyes were dark with pain, grief, and a storm rising beneath both. "This ain't over, Elena," he said. "Rourke did this to scare us. Next time he won't stop at burnin' wood." Elena took a slow, shaky breath. Then she made a choice. The fear stopped running. The truth stopped hiding. The secret stopped suffocating. "I need to tell you something," she said, voice trembling but steadying with every word. "About why Rourke wants me. About the papers I carry. About the land he killed my husband for." Caleb stiffened. "Elena." She swallowed hard. "I won't let him destroy this ranch because of something I kept quiet." His jaw tightened. "You don't owe me." "I owe myself," she whispered, "and the child I'm carrying, and Maggie, and Evan, and—" she exhaled painfully, "and you." The wind swallowed her next breath, but determination rose in its place. The secret that had chased her across 2 counties was ready to be dragged into the light. No more running. Not for her. Not for Caleb. Not for anyone on Raven Ridge. Caleb helped Evan stagger toward the house, but Elena could see his burned hand shaking, see the smoke-stung pain hiding behind his jaw. Maggie held the door open, eyes wet, voice small. "Is everyone okay?" "No," Caleb answered honestly, "but we're here." Elena guided Evan to the table, pressing a damp cloth to his cheek. She tried to steady her breath, but the truth she'd carried for months pressed so hard against her chest, she thought she might break open if she didn't speak. Caleb leaned against the counter, exhausted, burned, but still standing like the world expected him to carry it. "Tell me," he said quietly. "Whatever it is, you said you needed to." Elena reached into her shawl, fingers trembling as she pulled out a folded oilcloth bundle. Thin, worn, kept close through every mile of fear. Caleb's expression darkened. "You've been carrying that this whole time?" "Yes," she whispered. "Because it's the reason Rourke hunts me. The reason my wagon train turned me out. The reason my husband died." Maggie and Evan exchanged a fearful glance. Caleb stepped forward. "What's inside?" Elena unwrapped it slowly, revealing 2 documents, one browned around the edges, the other written in a hurried hand. A land deed, a crude map marked with a blue line, a Mach Nuke, a hidden water vein, on land that wasn't supposed to belong to Rourke, or the men paying him. Caleb stared hard. "Where'd you get these?" Elena swallowed. My husband, Thomas, found them. He worked for the surveyor's office. He discovered that the land Rourke's men claimed was theirs wasn't. They forged documents to steal it from a family that died years ago, Thomas. He wanted to report it. Her voice cracked. But before he could, someone caught him. He told me to run. Hid these papers under the wagon seat. I didn't know what they meant at first. Just that he died protecting them. The room stood still. Even the wind outside paused. Caleb's voice came quiet but heavy. Rourke killed your husband. Yes. And your wagon train threw you out because they were scared, she whispered. Scared Rourke would kill them too if they helped me. Caleb closed his eyes briefly, as if holding back a storm. Elena shook her head, tears streaking her smoke-smeared skin. I didn't tell you because people die around these papers. Towns burn. Families suffer. I couldn't bear to bring that to you. You already brought it, Evan said, harsh but scared. Elena flinched. Caleb turned to his nephew. Enough. But uncle, enough, he repeated, firmer. She kept quiet because she was alone. We know better now. Elena tried to steady her breath. If you give me a horse, I'll leave. Tonight. You don't deserve this. Neither do the kids. Maggie grabbed Elena's hand fast, small fingers gripping tight. Don't go. Caleb looked at Elena like she'd just said something unforgivable. You think leaving fixes this? It keeps you safe. No, it don't, he said. Rourke's already set fire to my land, already dragged my name through the mud for protecting you. If you leave now, he wins, and he keeps coming. Elena shook her head, tears dripping onto her hands. I don't want anyone dying for me again. Caleb stepped closer, voice low, rough, honest. Then stand with us. Don't run. You want this to stop? We face it. Elena looked at him, really looked, and saw it. He wasn't asking out of pride, or righteousness, or stubbornness. He was asking because he believed she mattered, because somewhere between fear and fire, they'd become tied to the same fight. Her voice broke when she whispered, I'm scared. So am I, Caleb replied. But fear ain't what decides who we are. His burned hand hovered near hers, not touching, offering. A choice. Her breath shook. Her chest hurt. Her heart knew the answer before she said it. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. And I'll fight. Caleb exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for years. But before relief could settle, Evan spoke again. Quiet. Trembling. Uncle, look. He pointed out the window. Across the valley, a line of torches glowed in the distance, creeping forward like a serpent made of fire and hate. Dry water. A mob. Coming for Elena. Coming for Raven Ridge. Caleb squared his shoulders, stepping between the family and the approaching flames. Get inside, he said. Bolt the doors. This ends tonight. Elena's pulse hammered, because staying had been the right choice. But now the whole town was coming to make her regret it. The night split open with fire. Torches snaked down the ridge in a long, angry line. Men shouting, boots stomping, guns glinting in the dark. Drywater wasn't pretending anymore. The whole damn town was coming. Elena stood frozen behind the window, breath fogging the glass. She'd always known fear could grow legs, follow her across counties. But she'd never imagined it taking the shape of neighbors holding pitchforks and rifles like they were marching to a hanging. Maggie whimpered. Evan pulled her close, face pale. Caleb stepped onto the porch, rifle slung across his back, but hands empty. He didn't carry the weapon like a threat, only as a promise he hoped he wouldn't have to cash in. "Stay inside," he told them without looking back. "This ain't your burden." But Elena pushed the door open, heart pounding. "It is. You said stand with you." Caleb turned, eyes locking on hers. In them she saw fear, fury, protectiveness, and something else she couldn't yet name. "You stay behind me," he said quietly. "No matter what." She nodded, throat tight. The mob reached the gate, torches casting long, jagged shadows across the yard. Sheriff Collins rode at the front, shoulders hunched, as if even he didn't want to be here, but came anyway, drowned by pressure he'd never learned to resist. Rourke Dallow sat on a tall bay horse beside him, grinning like a man who'd been waiting years to burn something beautiful. "Well, well," Rourke drawled. "The Hart Ranch in full bloom tonight." Caleb took a single step forward. "Put out the flames. You don't come onto my land with fire." Rourke chuckled. "You don't get to set rules anymore. You've been hiding a criminal, a witch, a liar. Word is she's carrying things that don't belong to her." Elena felt heat flood her cheeks. Not anger, but shame Rourke had carved into her over months. Caleb didn't flinch. "She's carrying truth. That's all." Some men murmured nervously. Ada Finch pushed through the crowd, breathless, eyes wide. "Caleb, listen, this ain't right. People are scared. Rourke's making 'em believe she brought that fire, that she cursed the timber yard." "That fire was yours," Caleb snapped at Rourke. Rourke shrugged with casual cruelty. "Prove it." Sheriff Collins cleared his throat. "Caleb, maybe just hand her over. Let the law sort it out." Caleb turned his head slowly, expression like stone cracking. "You ain't law. You ain't stopped him once. You ain't stopped anything." Collins paled under the accusation. The mob surged forward a step. Elena flinched. Maggie gasped inside the doorway. Evan shouted, "Back off! She didn't do nothing!" Rourke ignored the boy, his eyes fixed on Elena with a predator's stillness. "You want peace?" he asked Caleb. "Give me the woman." "No," Caleb said. "You want your nephew safe? Your ranch standing? Give her to me." "I said no." Torches crackled. Wind hissed. Every man held his breath like the night itself waited for one spark to explode. Rourke tilted his head, expression sharpening. "You're risking everything for a woman who ain't yours." "Why?" Caleb didn't answer. Not yet. Because the truth wasn't simple. It wasn't just protection or duty or guilt. Elena could feel it in the quiet between his breaths. He'd changed somewhere along the path between Drywater and Raven Ridge, between fear and fire, between what she'd been and what she might become. The mob wanted a reason to hate her. Caleb wanted a reason to keep her, and the two forces collided in the space between their heartbeats. Elena stepped up beside him before she could think. Her voice shook but didn't break. "I won't go with you, Rourke." The mob murmured like startled cattle. Rourke smirked. "Sweetheart, I ain't askin'." Caleb moved fast, too fast for thought, a subtle but unmistakable step in front of her. "She said no," he growled, "and that's the only answer you're gettin'." A dangerous hush fell. Elena felt the weight of the moment settle into her bones. The ranch behind her, the mob before her, Caleb's breath steady next to hers, and for the first time, she didn't feel like prey. Not entirely. Rourke lifted his torch and smiled. "Then I guess we do this the hard way." He thrust the torch downward. The flames licked at dry grass near the fence line. The mob surged forward, angry, half-drunk, terrified men moving as one. Caleb braced, jaw set. Elena grabbed his sleeve. "Caleb, no, don't fight them. They only need one lie to justify killing you." His voice came low, fierce. "Then we give 'em truth." A single heavy moment hung between them. The breath before the explosion, the heartbeat before violence, the razor edge between fear and defiance. Then, from behind the mob, a woman's voice rang out, sharp, clear, cutting through the chaos like a bell. "Stop!" Ada Finch pushed through the torchlight again, this time holding something. A ledger, a letter, evidence. Her face pale but determined. "Before anyone does something stupid," she said loudly, "you ought to see what Rourke's been hiding." The mob faltered. Heads turned. Rourke stiffened. Elena felt her pulse roar in her ears. And Caleb. Caleb's breath slowed with something that felt almost like hope. The truth had arrived. Uninvited. Unavoidable. And it was about to crack Drywater open. The mob didn't fully break apart, but it wavered. Like a living thing suddenly unsure of the direction it had been charging toward. Torches shook. Boots shifted in the dirt. The anger that had carried these men up the ridge began to crack under something far more dangerous. Doubt. Ada Finch held the ledger against her chest like a shield. Her hands trembled. The whole town could see it, but her chin stayed high. "Everyone back," she said, breath hitching. "I ain't letting no fire start till you hear this." Rourke sneered. "Ada, put that book down. You don't know what you're holding." "Oh, I know," she shot back. "I know exactly what this is." She opened it. Not dramatically. There was nothing theatrical about Ada. She was the type to stack shelves, mend seams, raise children, bury dreams. But that quiet grit made her next words ring louder. "These are records of payoffs," Ada said. "Forced signatures, threats made, debts collected with fists and gun barrels, land deeds forged. That water vein you all think belongs to the Dallow spread? It don't." A hush rippled outward. Rourke's smile turned thin, brittle. Caleb stepped forward. "Ada, show them." Ada flipped the ledger around, revealing pages with names, dry water names, people standing in the mob, neighbors, shop owners, ranch hands, and a signature scrawled at the bottom of many entries. R. Dallow. Rourke been squeezing folks for months, Ada said, threatening 'em with fire, with bullets, with dry wells. You think the widow here cursed your town? No, Rourke did. Murmurs surged, some angry, some horrified. Elena felt the breath lodge in her throat. She'd known Rourke was cruel. She hadn't known he'd turned the entire town into puppets on a burning string. Rourke spat on the ground. These people owe me. That's business. Caleb's voice cracked like a whip. No, that's control. Rourke rolled his shoulders, bored. You finished playing lawyer, Hart? We came for the woman. That ain't changed. Then maybe this will, Ada said sharply. From her coat pocket, she pulled a folded letter, yellowed, worn, sealed with the faint blue stamp of the territory's surveyor office. Elena's knees nearly gave out. She recognized that seal, Thomas's last letter. Ada held it high. This was given to me by a man dying in my store doorway. I didn't know what it meant. Not until I saw Elena alive. Elena's breath shattered. That was Thomas, she whispered. He made it out of the canyon? Her voice broke. Ada met her gaze, eyes softening. He tried to. He gave me this, and made me promise to keep it until the right time. Rourke's face twitched with sudden panic. Caleb stepped closer to Ada, reading the fear on Rourke's face. Open it. Ada unfolded the letter. Her voice trembled as she read. If this reaches anyone, know they're taking the water. They killed for it. I'm running. Elena, if you live, protect the map. Don't trust the sheriff. Don't trust Rourke. Get to Raven Ridge if I don't make it. Gasps rippled through the mob. Caleb felt Elena sway behind him. He didn't look back, but he reached his arm out slightly, enough for her to steady herself against it. Ada took a slow breath. Thomas Crow died trying to warn us, and we almost let his widow burn for it. Sheriff Collins paled. His hand dropped from his holster like it weighed 100 pounds. Someone shouted, Sheriff, you knew! You were part of this! Collins shook his head wildly. I didn't. He said, Rourke told me. But the crowd smelled guilt, and guilt was blood and water. Rourke straightened his back, letting the mob turn on the sheriff instead of him. She's lying, he snapped. That ledger ain't proof. That letter's fake. The widow's a manipulator, always has been. Elena stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but it cut deeper than any shout. Rourke killed my husband. The night froze. Elena swallowed, eyes burning. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself the men who chased us were just thieves. But I saw your face when you tore him from the wagon. I saw your gun. I heard him beg you to let him warn the town. Her voice cracked again. And I heard the shot. Rourke flinched. Not visibly, but enough that Caleb saw it. Enough that the mob saw it. Caleb turned to face the crowd. His voice filled the yard with something solid, morality made into sound. She ain't your witch. She ain't cursed. She's a woman who lost everything because men like him wanted more. Elena's chest shook. Caleb wasn't finished. You want justice? Start with the truth. Start with who lit fires, who took land, who killed for water. Rourke snarled. You self-righteous! Elena stepped forward until she stood beside Caleb, shoulder brushing his, and for the first time in months, she wasn't hiding behind anyone. I'm done running, she said. I won't go with you. Not now. Not ever. Rourke's eyes went dark with rage. The mob held its breath. Caleb stood taller, voice low and thunderous. She stays with me. The words rang out like an oath, like a claim, a promise, a line in the dirt no one would cross without bleeding. Some men lowered their torches. Some stepped back entirely. Doubt rippled through them in waves. Rourke felt control slipping, and panic made him reckless. You think you can stop me, Hart? He snapped. You ain't nothing. You're a ghost of who you used to be. I took your timber. I'll take your ranch next. Then he spat the final poison. Just like her husband, I'll take whatever she's got left. Elena flinched. Caleb broke. He stepped toward Rourke, fury simmering like molten steel. But he didn't reach for his gun. He didn't attack. He simply stood there, unmoving, unbroken, unafraid. You won't touch her again, Caleb said. Rourke scoffed. Or what? You gonna shoot me in front of the whole town? Elena's pulse pounded. Caleb's eyes burned, not with murder, but with something more dangerous. Resolve. I don't kill unless I have to, he said, but I will defend what's mine now. The crowd erupted, shouting, arguing, turning on itself. Some men shoved Rourke, others shoved Collins. Ada waved the ledger like scripture. Maggie cried. Evan grabbed her, afraid she'd run toward the fire. Through all of it, Elena stared at Caleb. He'd said what's mine now. He meant her. He meant choosing her, not just protecting her. The world spun under her feet. The mob roared and split. Torches were dropped. Rourke backed away, fury twisting his face as Drywater finally began to see what he was. Caleb looked at Elena, chest rising and falling with ragged breaths, burned hand trembling at his side. Elena, he whispered, voice raw. I told you, you're not alone. And for the first time, truly the first time, she believed him. The mob trickled away one torch at a time, doubt eating holes in their anger. Rourke cursed as the red vultures dragged him off before he pushed his luck any further. Sheriff Collins slumped in the dirt, finally realizing the town he thought he owned had slipped through his fingers. Silence spread over Raven Ridge, thin, eerie, trembling at the edges. Elena didn't breathe until the last hoofbeat faded. Only then did her legs buckle. Caleb caught her with his burned hand, steadying her before she collapsed. You're safe, he murmured. But she wasn't sure safety meant anything anymore. Caleb turned to Evan. Get Maggie inside. Lock up. Heat some water. Evan nodded shakily and hurried the girl into the house. The door closed, leaving the yard too wide and too empty. Elena's voice barely rose above a whisper. Your hand. I'll wrap it, he said. Just not yet. They stood facing each other in the dark, both too wrung out to pretend. The night wind swept between them like a tired messenger. Come in, she said gently. You're hurt. Caleb didn't move. There was something he carried, something heavier than fire or bullets. Elena, he began slowly. What Rourke said about who I was. She swallowed. I want to hear it from you. Caleb drew in a rough breath, eyes fixed on the ground. I grew up angry, reckless, fell in with night riders, men quick to burn and quicker to blame. We thought we ran the territory. Truth was, we just spread hurt. He paused, jaw tightening. There was a barn. Fire jumped too fast. A kid inside. Elena's heart clenched. I froze, he whispered. Didn't run toward him. I ran away. Been running ever since. The shame in his voice made her chest ache. He wasn't a man hiding behind pride. He was a man terrified he wasn't allowed redemption. You saved 2 men tonight, she said softly. That matters. It don't erase what I was. No, she admitted, but it proves who you are. He shut his eyes like her belief hurt worse than his guilt. And about Thomas, he forced out. Elena stiffened, pain stabbing through her ribs. I didn't know he made it far enough to hand Ada that letter. He was brave, Caleb said, braver than most men I knew. He saw the truth about Rourke and tried to get ahead of it. She blinked through rising tears. I thought he died alone. He died protecting me, Caleb whispered. That bullet, it was meant for me. Elena covered her mouth, swallowing a sob. It broke her heart and strangely stitched part of it back together. I never blamed you, she said thickly. I blamed the world. I blamed myself, but never you. Caleb stared at her like the words were a miracle he wasn't ready for. You should hate me. I don't. You should leave. I won't. He stepped closer, eyes searching her face like he expected to find the lie there. Then tell me why. Because you didn't save me tonight, she whispered. We stood together. I'm tired of running. And you don't have to hold all that hurt alone. Caleb looked away, shoulders trembling. When he spoke again, his voice was barely breath. I ain't trying to rescue you anymore. I know. I'm choosing you. Elena felt her heart crack open, tender and terrified. Slowly, she stepped closer until her forehead brushed his. Then let me choose you back. Caleb didn't touch her, not at first. He waited, giving her the space she'd been denied for so long. So she lifted her hand and cupped his cheek, brushing soot from his jaw. His eyes closed, as if her touch steadied something deep inside him. "Elena," he breathed, "I ain't got much to offer, but everything I've got." "That's enough." A soft sniffle sounded at the doorway. Maggie peeked out, eyes wide. Evan hovered behind her, pretending he wasn't watching. Elena smiled through tears, and Maggie ducked back inside with the shy grin of a child who finally felt safe again. The porch light spilled warm gold across Caleb's face. Elena slipped her fingers around his scorched hand. "Come in," she whispered. "Let me help." He nodded, voice unsteady. "We'll figure the rest tomorrow." They walked inside together, slow, bruised, leaning into the first quiet moment they'd had in days. Elena helped him sit at the table, gently wrapping his burned palm. Caleb watched her hands like he couldn't believe anyone would care for him like that. "Elena," he murmured, "thank you for standing up out there. You could have been killed." "And thank you," she whispered, "for not letting them take me." When she finished wrapping his hand, Caleb caught her wrist, soft, almost afraid. "Stay," he said. "Just sit with me a while." She sat beside him, their shoulders brushing. Silence wrapped around them like a blanket, warm, unhurried, healing. After a long moment, Elena lifted her eyes. "Caleb, tonight didn't just break things. It showed what can be rebuilt." He exhaled shakily. "With you?" "With us," she said. He pressed his forehead to hers again, a quiet promise in the gesture. Tomorrow would bring justice, questions, repairs. But tonight was the first time they allowed themselves to rest. The first time neither of them carried their burden alone. The first time Raven Ridge felt like a place not just to survive, but to belong. Spring returned to dry-water territory softly, like it wasn't sure it was welcome. But Raven Ridge felt different now. Lighter, steadier, lived in a way only a hard-won home could be. The trials came first. Rourke Dallow stood in irons before a federal judge brought in from Santa Fe. Ada Finch handed over the ledger, the letter, and half a dozen townsfolk testified, shame thick in their voices. Sheriff Collins lost his badge before the first recess. The jury took less than an hour. Rourke went pale when the foreman said, "Guilty." But Caleb didn't smile. Justice wasn't a celebration. It was relief. A slow unclenching inside the ribs. Elena watched from the back row, one hand resting over the curve of her belly. When the verdict echoed through the courthouse, she finally let out a breath she'd been holding since the night her husband died. After that, the town shifted. Not fast, not perfectly, but enough. A new sign went up on the general store. "Fair way, fair price." Folks nodded to Caleb when they'd once crossed the street to avoid him. Some apologized. Some brought pies. Most simply tried to forget the night they nearly became monsters. Caleb didn't need apologies. He needed peace. And he'd finally found the start of it. Rowan Crow Hart was born on a warm summer morning, red-faced and furious at the world, tiny fists punching the air like she was already picking fights for her future. Caleb cried harder than the baby. Elena pretended not to notice, kissing both their foreheads while Maggie fetched water and Evan ran laps around the house shouting, "She's here! She's here!" The ranch healed too. The timber camp was rebuilt, stronger this time, with stone fire breaks and metal buckets lined in tidy rows. A new fence stretched along the south pasture, straight as a soldier's spine. Caleb carved the gate sign himself, sanding it until the letters caught the sunlight. Hart and Crow cattle not fancy, but honest. A promise in wood grain. And the concho, Rourke's mark of ownership, no longer lived in a drawer. Evan flattened it, polished it, drilled a neat hole through the top, and hung it as a wind chime on the porch beam. When the breeze slid through the valley, the soft metallic ring drifted across the yard like a whisper home. Almost a year to the day after the mob came with torches, Caleb and Elena stood by the new fence, Rowan bundled in Elena's arms, Maggie leaning against Caleb's side, Evan hammer in hand. "Ready?" Caleb asked. Elena nodded. "Plant it." Evan lowered the sapling into the soil, a young cottonwood, stubborn and bright. Maggie packed the dirt around its base, humming something tuneless but sweet. Caleb set his hand over Elena's on the fence rail. "This land saw fire," he said softly. "Saw lies, saw loss. But it's ours now. All of ours." Rowan cooed, tiny fingers curling in her sleep. Elena rested her head briefly on his shoulder. "Then let's grow something, better than what came before." The wind stirred the new leaves. The concho chime rang once, clear and soft. A sound like forgiveness, a sound like staying. Caleb squeezed her hand. "We already are."